Hey there, welcome back to another week of your Mortgage Market Movers Weekly. So, this week we're doing something a little different. Instead of me rambling on, looking at the charts and going over data that may or may not confuse people, we're going to have a conversation. So, I had a very special guest, Alan Paraso of Alan and Shamie Team out here from Jax. And Alan is just a top tier guy, really great guy. Incredible realtor. He is sprinkling tons of tidbits of knowledge, so this is a conversation you won't want to miss. All right, before we hop into that, the rates are coming down now. It's not a free fall for the rates. They aren't plummeting. 6.85 is the average 30-year fixed rate according to the Fed. That is down from last week's 6.87. So they're taking the stairs. They are taking their time, coming down slowly but surely, and hopefully we keep seeing those declines week over week. All right, now let's get over the conversation, see what Alan has to say. Hey, man. All right.
Hey.
I'm here with Alan Paraso. And we're going to do something different this week. Instead of going over some of the numbers, data, and whatnot, just going to have a little conversation, man. So, yeah.
Nice little podcast style. I like it.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's going out to the millions of viewers.
Hey, I love it.
Yeah. This is probably more viewers than Joe Rogan, right? But no, anyway. Yeah, Alan, so... So you're a local realtor here in Jacksonville, right?
That's correct. Yes, I am.
Right on, man. Cool. Tell us how you got into that.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'll just go ahead and introduce myself for marketing purposes before anybody starts shooting out fines to me. So I'm Alan Paraso. I am one half of the Alan and Shamie team here at United Real Estate Gallery, which is a local brokerage here in Jacksonville, Florida. And to go back on your question, Nick, how did I get into it? Great question. I started way back in 2016 is when I first got my license, and I really got into it because of my brother-in-law. So he's been in the business since he was, since he was 25. He's almost like 50 now. If you're listening to this, Sonny, I love you. So you don't look 50. That's all I got to say. But yeah, he's really the one that kind of, got me into thinking about this. Really, I started this career when I was about 25. And it really came down to the fact that, I'm very up on social media. And, everybody likes to post all of their highlight reels of their lives on social media and everything like that. And I found that a lot of my friends were buying houses. And I was like, wait a second, why can't I be like that? So I was like, you know what? Let's give it a shot. Let's try it out. So I went ahead, studied, took the test, did my classes and everything like that. And boom, I became a realtor. And it literally took one person to believe in me. And then everything just kind of took off from there. So it's been a pretty cool ride since 2016.
Okay, right on, man. Dude, that's super cool you said your brother-in-law, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm assuming the people that would be watching this would know, but I'm a loan officer here with Mortgages by Linda, and the Linda is my mother, right? So it's a family thing, man.
Family thing, man. I'm telling you.
I feel like, our industry is such a hustle connection industry, right? You got to hustle, of course, right?
Right.
You really got to go out and establish connections and whatnot, and really got to grind to meet people. And it's a lot about these partnerships you might develop, these connections you might make. And when you have a family member that is already there, it's, it's a lot easier to break into that world. So I would assume that
it's because you're already involved with it into some an indirect degree. You know what I mean?
100%.
You hear about it, you're there, you're like, okay. Like you're hearing little tidbits about this and that, and you're like, get to pondering. You're like,
yeah.
You know what? Why not?
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah. No, for sure, man. Yeah. You get to see their highlight reels, right? You're like, oh man, bro-in-law's he's making money. Yeah,
Right.
so
that guy.
Yeah. No, for sure. Right on, man. That's real cool. Real cool. Okay, yeah. So since 2016, so 9 years, man. That's pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
9 years. So I was there before COVID, height
Yeah.
of COVID, post COVID, and for all those who have been in the business for that long or longer, they have seen some things and they have gone through things. So it has been a journey. I will say that much for sure.
Yeah. For sure. I've been doing this about like maybe like 5 or 6 years. Feels longer than that because COVID really
It'll,
2020 is when it took off.
yeah,
I feel like I've been doing it longer. Anyway, yeah, COVID
that's
was such
besides the point.
a weird time. I feel like it seems like there's definitely been a good bit of different cycles with the real estate world, right? I mean, the COVID world, pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID. I would imagine it's pretty different on the realtor side of things. I know for mortgage side of things, right? I mean, that's when we had our lowest rates ever. Um, Crazy.
Literally an anomaly. I'm like, what is this? This is
Yeah.
insane. So, I think they like to refer it as the golden handcuff if you
Mm.
have bought during that time. And I know it's really hard for a lot of people to let that go. I've heard it. I've heard it. But, you know, perception is always key to a lot of things. And that's something that I like to go over with my clients when I speak with them and everything like that. But,
Yeah, man. Though those interest rates, and in the mortgage world, it's all about the interest rate. That's what anyone ever cares about. They're like, what's the rate? What's the rate? Um,
dude, I hear that all the time. I'm like, I'm not a lender, but
yeah,
I can get connected with one.
yeah, yeah. So um, like I said, like in my world of financing, that's the big thing. Is there, what's like the thing on the realtor side of thing? Is there something that people really gravitate towards and really like because I feel like with interest rates, people aren't really familiar with what's under the hood, right? When we look at interest rates, they're so incredibly volatile, but only during periods. So I would say right now we're in a period of high volatility. Not to get too into the weeds of interest rates, but they're based off the U.S. 10-year yield, and the yield will vary drastically depending on the bond market. Today, for instance, if you looked at the financial markets, there was a huge decline in stocks, and the bond market was doing really well. And the 10-year yield dropped like something like 200 something basis points, which means that mortgage interest rates dropped too. And this is just all in one day. So the volatility is just crazy. And I think that people don't, obviously, they're not in that world, but that is something that people really harp on that is probably not understood very well, maybe by mortgage individuals, but certainly not by the layperson. Is there something like, in the realtor world where people really gravitate towards and like you constantly have to be like, okay, this is the deal, this is how it works?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you hit it right on the head. Interest rates are always the talk of the town. I get that question day in, day out, every day. Um, but then, even alongside of that, from the real estate perspective, prices of housing, how is that coming along? Obviously during the height of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
skyrocketed. These
Mm-hmm.
prices skyrocketed, but and just to give a disclosure, I just want to just put this out there for the viewers so that when they're listening to this, of course, when you and I are speaking, we're speaking based off of the data that we are, you know, um, researching, taking a look at, analyzing, and things like that. And then parts of the things that we're saying may be based off of our personal opinion. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever I may be saying, whatever you may be saying, I just wanted to let it be known that whatever my opinion may be, it may not be it may not be as relevant to one realtor to the next realtor, one lender to the
Yeah.
next lender, et cetera, et cetera. But there are some factual points that that will come up, and that's just based off of the data, right?
Yeah.
With that being said, in terms of interest rates, in terms of um, pricing of houses, as I take a look at it right now, I'm literally staring the Northeast Florida Association of Realtors database, and they typically come out with their data every 10th of the month, usually. So right now I'm taking a look at January 2025's, and one thing I always like to take a look at is the months of supply of inventory.
Mm.
Now, right now it's showing 6.4 months. And what that means in the realtor world is that if we hit 6 months, that essentially means on paper, we are in a buyer's market.
Mm.
So that means, and to kind of even go further on that, when we say there's 6.4 months of supply of inventory, that's saying if we stop production of any houses, if we stop putting homes on the market at this very moment, it would take 6.4 months for all of the houses to sell.
Mm.
Obviously, that's not going to happen, but just in theory, if you were to do that, it would take
Yeah.
6.4 months for all of it to
Okay.
go away, be bought. Now, personally, I kind of like where the market is at the moment. And again, this is my personal opinion. And the reason why is because, you know, coming from prior to COVID, during COVID, after COVID, I feel like the market is somewhat being reset back to the times
Mm.
prior to COVID.
Okay.
Now, and that gets hard for people. And again, this is where I said perception is a big deal, is because in our minds, during that period of time of COVID, like things were moving fast, interest rates were low, everything was like boom, 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 boom. Like you could cough and you'll sell a house. You know what I mean? You can cough and close a loan. Like you could breathe and close 10 loans. Like it's crazy. Um, but with with the way that the market's moving, I feel like it isn't drastically like bringing the prices of houses down. It's more
Mm.
so just making it very steady, and there's a steady increase in pricing, um, or or there's just more opportunities for, and this is what I liked, again, coming from that COVID time period. Um, there's opportunity for an actual negotiation to occur. I
Mm.
mean, I just remember those days where, when I was working with buyers, it's like, hey, man, you know, hey, madam, miss, mister, whatever. Um, like, if you want this house, you're gonna have to put this plus. You're gonna have to offer like 20, 30, $40,000 more if you want to buy
Mm-hmm.
this house.
Yep.
And I think that was like insane. That I was like, man, that's so wild. And obviously, like price is always in the eye of the beholder, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just because a house appraises at a certain price doesn't mean that someone isn't still willing to buy it at the price they already had agreed upon, right?
Yeah. Of course. Of course.
Um, you know, um, now that we have that ability to negotiate and everything like that, or have more of the ability to negotiate, I think it's nice, and I think it gives um, people leverage on both sides. I think, but there's more meeting of the minds, like a little bit more compromise. That's kind of evening out, in my opinion, versus like one side just winning it all. Like
Yeah.
I know in this world we all want to be winners, but at the end of the day, like if both sides don't win,
Mhm.
then both sides just lose.
Yeah. No.
You know?
100%. And you brought up a lot of stuff that I want to
Yeah. No.
cover.
Sorry. I was
No,
just like,
no,
man.
no,
I was like,
no, no.
oof.
That was great. That was great. And I'm just hoping that I can remember everything that I asked, because I think that you bring up so many good points, and things that people should be aware of. And I'm just hoping that I can be like, okay, he said this point, like, once we start a conversation, I'm like, oh, I hope I can reel it back, because I really want to ask all these things.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I think the first thing is, looking at the data, right? You said something really important, that you're giving your perspective. So one thing that I've been trying to do with these weekly mortgage updates is I want to take a look at the data, and the data is an aggregate, of course. It's an
Okay.
aggregation of all these different things going on, and it might line up with your experience and it might not, of course.
Sure.
There's
Mhm.
certain things too, and a lot of the times when we're looking at this data, at least the data that I'm looking at, that I'm getting, it's not particular to Florida, and we're looking at averages. And the United States is a big place, of course, and it varies drastically. And one thing that I wanted to ask is, I have seen in the data that existing home sales have declined. I think January 30th, let's see. They were down month over month in January, down about 5% for
Mhm.
pending home sales. So that excludes anything that's new construction. Um,
Gotcha. Yep. Mhm.
so I wanted to know it when you say that houses are sitting, what you said 6.4, right? That's how many months?
Yes. Yes.
About right.
6.4 about.
Is that Florida or is that the average in the United States or
So yeah, let me clarify on that. So this is Northeast Florida.
okay, Northeast Florida?
Correct. This is Northeast Florida. I wasn't speaking, the nation as a whole or
Okay,
Florida as a whole. I was honing in just strictly on
okay,
Northeast Florida,
perfect.
in general. Yep.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay, okay. No, that's great. Because I know that there are certain things going on in the country. I know that like Washington D.C. I believe has a huge surplus of homes available right now. So I didn't know if that was contributing to the supply side of things. Well, that answered that. But yeah, so I mean, moving on, I think that getting back to maybe where home buying isn't such like a zero sum game, right?
Right.
Like you mentioned in COVID, um, you would have people that wanted to come to Jacksonville, right? So you had a huge influx of demand. And of course, when you have a huge influx of demand, really price, of course, always boils down to supply and demand. And you
Hmm.
can have appraised values all day, but what matters, what's going to drive price is the demand for something or lack thereof. Um, and, I think anyone trying to buy a house does remember maybe they put an offer in and they're like, okay, this is a great offer. We're going at listing price. This is what the person asked for. And then someone swoops in with cash. Someone swoops in with cash and gave them an extra 10K and they lost it. So, um, I know since then home values have definitely come down. Of course, having that extra supply is going to drive the price down because that means demand is lower. Um, so I don't know if I necessarily want to call that a zero sum game. It might have there might have been some losers, some winners here, but it sounds like things could get a lot more equal as far as an equal playing ground for buyers and sellers now at this point where you are able to negotiate and you don't have to just worry about someone coming in moving from New York, California, wherever they're coming from, paying cash for a house. So you are seeing that the negotiations it's more of an equal playing field, right?
In my opinion, I do think so. And like I said, like whether I'm working with buyers or I'm working with sellers, at the end of the day, uh, we both we both want to come to an agreement on both sides. You know, Buyers want to buy a house, sellers want to sell their house. Sellers want to make money, buyers want to make sure they have a roof over their head.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and so, I do feel like it did level out, and it kind of does remind me of what things were like prior to the height of COVID, prior to
Mm.
2020. Home sitting on the market for about 90 days, 120 days. That was the average, and I kind
Mm.
of feel like that's what I'm starting to see nowadays. I mean, the data shows, like if I'm staring at it right now, it says the median days on market, it's about 50. But I think that is also dependent on where you live.
Yeah.
What part of town are you at? How desirable is area? Um, so that again, that's all perspective. But I think in general, hitting that mark up to the 90 days is quote unquote normal.
Mhm.
And I think that's where sellers kind of freak out a little bit. But I do think it is the job of us, the realtors, to kind of lay that expectations for the sellers and let them know, hey, in a realistic sense, I just want to prepare you that your home may sit for this long. And it's not because we're not doing our job. I mean, I hope the realtor that you did choose to work with is doing all the best that they can to sell your home, but also take into consideration all the other factors that it takes to buy a home.
Mhm.
Just like you said, interest rate plays a big factor. Um, you know, income plays a big factor. You know, the plethora of supply that's out there, that plays a big factor as well, because now your home isn't the only one there. They'd have
Mhm.
options to choose from. So it's just making sure that we're educating the people that we are working with on both sides, how things are going to roll, or how you think how it's supposed to go, and that's crucial in our business.
Mhm. Okay. So would you say, in your perspective, it is more of a buyer's market right now? With things being a little bit more fair, I mean, does it have to be a seller's or a buyer's market? Can it be a little bit more of an equal playing? I know that those are the terms that we're used to saying, right? We tell buyers,
Right.
"Hey guys, it's your time to shine," Um, but it almost does make it seem like one side has to compromise, and maybe we are seeing a little bit of a pullback where maybe both parties can compromise, right? Or how would you put it, I guess?
No, I definitely agree with you. I think compromise is a really good word, especially nowadays. And like I said, or like I was saying before, just the thought of sellers putting their home on the market and just them, uh, just just being. Sorry, let me get my work straight.
Yeah.
Being in a Having your perspective of during that height of COVID of like, oh, okay, I'm gonna make X amount of money and I'm gonna make it this fast. Like the reality is, everything becomes very very volatile. There's a lot of movement in the market, so you just have to make sure you're working with someone who's um, up on those times, up on the data, just making sure they're being able to relay, hey, this is what's going on, so I can help you expect what to do, so you can plan correctly. Especially when you're selling your home and you need to relocate, or you're selling your home to try and buy another home, and you need to sell your home to get into this new home. Like how do you expect these things, and how do we make these things happen for our clients?
Okay. Okay. I mean, so speaking of client, I think that you've touched on this a good bit already, but
No, you're good.
has your strategy changed, and with the different dynamics of the market now? Like, how are you interacting with your clients to get them adapted to this new um, cycle of home buying, home selling?
Are you referring strictly to just buyers or just sellers, or to both?
Well, yeah, I mean, really, it's like I would assume, right? And this is me being an ignorant loan officer, right? I'm not a realtor, of
No.
course, but I would assume there's a certain strategy that might be put in place if it is more of a buyer's market or a seller's market. If it's more of a seller's market, you might come to buyers and say, okay, this is the deal. This is kind of how we should operate in order to um uh in order for everyone to get what they want and to kind of like maximize both parties value in the ordeal. Has your strategy changed with this different kind of era where with things coming back to almost pre-COVID, right, where things are probably a little more normal? Because like we said, it was pretty crazy during COVID. That's not how things typically are.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, strategies are constantly changing. Me and Shamie, every year as a new year starts, like usually in Q4, we're already, you know, thinking about, okay, this upcoming year, like how is the market now? And, obviously there's predictions that come, but it only tells us so much
Hmm.
until it actually becomes a reality. So, we're always thinking about what can we do to better educate our clients, whether you're a buyer or a seller, and how can we make sure that their home buying or home selling experience is a very successful one. Um, from a home buying perspective, I think because there is supply out there, there's options that gives them breathing room. Me and Shamie really are the type of people that like to provide a service that works in favor of the client, meaning we're going to move the way that you want to move. If you want to move fast, we'll move fast. You need a house in a month, we'll make that happen. How you want to make this a 6 months process? Cool, let's do it. Whatever works for you, we will cater to that.
Mm.
And because the market is the way that it is, it allows buyers to do that.
Okay.
Um, in our opinion, versus again, when you were in the height of COVID, it's like, okay, you looked at it, you either got to say yes now or it's gone. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so those were tough times, and that's what I like about how the market, in my opinion, seems to be somewhat leveling out because we can have more discussion, we can have more options, we can have breathing room, and that makes buyers feel good because they don't have that pressure of like, I have to make this decision now, or I'm screwed, or I'm going to lose out, or
Mm-hmm.
this, all of these fears, all of these
Yeah.
overthinking,
Yeah.
thoughts that start to flee in their minds. And and as a realtor, we wear many hats, so uh, we just have to ensure that the client is comfortable, and that's probably our number one thing. Me and Jamie just always like to make sure clients comfortable with whatever decisions they're making, and we're just providing them the right guidance to
Mm.
get them to that decision.
Okay.
From a seller perspective, I mean, numbers don't lie. We anytime we do our comparative market analyses, taking a look at all these homes, we show them the data. We say, hey, look, this is what the homes are selling for around your area that are comparable to your home. Um, and I feel like for us, we do get a pretty generally positive, feedback from that. We don't really get hard pushback or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, you know, and this is, and some people may do this, but for us, the seller can choose whatever price they want to list their home at. But the data will show this is potentially where it's going to appraise at. Um, you can test the market. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Our people test the market all the time. And that's okay. As long as you have a strategy to ensure that you're making this home as marketable as possible, that makes sense. That is the value, and that's the service us realtors provide to sellers. Um, because we should, we'll present everything to you. I mean, I hope that's what every realtor would do when they're listing a home, right? We'll present all the data that we need for you to feel comfortable. Like, okay, yeah, I see the numbers, I see what we're looking at, I see where the homes have sold, I see when they sold, all of that type of stuff. And when it comes time to actually list the home, there isn't any strange pushback because we've already developed the strategies and the plan for that long haul, potential long haul, if it gets to that point, to again to ensure that your goal is, hey, you want to sell your house and you want to make some money off of it. Okay, cool. For us, we always also run um, estimate sheets for them just so they know, hey, this is your potential profits if it's sold at price A, price B, price C, even a
Mm-hmm.
price D, you know, just so you know, so you expect it already. So once an offer comes in, you could already look at your estimate sheets and say, okay, it falls within this range, and I know that I'm going to get this amount if I sold it for this price.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense, and I think I really I like the I think that maybe some sellers might be a little bummed right now. They're like, "Oh no, my appraised value is a little lower," but I like the I like the idea that things are a little bit more predictable. And on
Yeah.
the sell side and on the buy side, it's like, well, you don't have to rush, because when you rush, you might make a bad decision. And the point in both of our lines of business is, let's make the best possible decision so that you have the best possible outcome, so you don't do anything brash and go and get yourself into a massive amount of debt. For most, I would say probably 99% of the people that I work with, and I'm assuming that you work with too, this is going to be their largest transactions of their life,
Mhm.
right? You're borrowing a lot of money. So you probably don't want to overthink. So I think that that's a great way to frame it. Like, you can slow
and
down,
mhm.
and things are a little bit more predictable on the sell side, right? Like, you don't.
and I do
No,
want
no,
to add
you're good.
something
Yeah.
too as well. Um, because you mentioned, sellers might be bummed, and yeah, we've definitely gotten those reactions as well. But it works in both ways, right?
Mm.
So typically, the notion is, if you're going to sell, you're probably going to buy
Yeah.
too, right?
Hmm.
So you're kind of playing in both fields. Yeah, one side kind of sucks, it or feels like it sucks. It's kind of bumming.
Yeah.
Um, But then on the other hand, you sold the house. Now you're going to buy. Now you're in that position. You're in that negotiable position where you're like, okay, now I have a plethora of options.
Mm.
And now, like, I can negotiate with these people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you know, it works in both ways. I think once we talk to our clients and we help them visualize that, they're like, okay, like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, that's like the leveling out right there.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of this whole ordeal and just kind of the cycles that we've seen, COVID probably did spoil some people. And I think that
Yeah.
some people maybe took it for granted a little bit. I definitely had some friends. I mean, geez, rates were 3%, then they were like 2.75, then they were 2.6. They got down low.
Dude,
Probably two and a half, right? And I had
think we'll ever see those again.
no,
Like, there would have to be some other wild, crazy thing, and I hope it never happens in,
yeah,
like, our lifetime. But, like, excuse me, like that. I mean, that's low, dude. That's
yeah.
low, low, low,
Yeah,
low,
yeah,
low.
yeah. Yeah, if for those that are watching right now, by the way,
That's
it's
like
what
low.
happened right afterwards is not fun. The reason
Nope.
that these rates are so low was, not to get into too much jargon, right? But as I said earlier, that interest rates are based off of the U.S. 10-year yield. This is a yield that investors get for buying into U.S. Treasury bonds, the 10-year bond.
Hmm.
And, well, why were people buying into bonds so much? Because they were afraid. They were afraid, of course. If typical, again, not to get into too much jargon, and I hope I'm not getting off on too much of a rant or anything, but
No, you're good.
if you're going to put your money somewhere, you want to get a really solid return if you're an investor. And
Hmm.
typically, a really great place to put that is the stock market. Well, when things are very, very uncertain and there's potential economic downturns and we don't know what's going to happen, what a bond does is, just in case people don't know, you're giving your money to the US government, and they're like, okay, this is an IOU. So we promise we'll give you your money back. But of course, you don't just want that. You need something else on top of that. One, you're losing your money to inflation for however long they hold that money for.
Yep.
And yeah, why would you just loan someone money for nothing else back? So they offer a yield. And
Hmm.
when the demand for bonds rises exponentially, the yield is going to fall exponentially. So that's usually not a great sign for the economy when people are flocking towards bonds and leaving the stock market. Usually that means investors are pretty scared, and they had great reason to.
Yeah,
So,
very fair.
yeah,
It's fair.
the world shut down after that. So, all those people that are like, I hope it gets back to 2.5. Well, let's hold our horses. But speaking of that, one thing that a good friend of mine said back before I went on that rant, back in 2019 when the rates were dropping, I was like, hey man, do you want to buy a house? Rates are crazy low right now. He was like, no, I'll just wait for the market to crash. It's about to crash. And I was like, well, maybe, but let's see. Let's see if it does.
Maybe.
And it didn't. I think that people remember 2008, of course, and people are fearful that the value in their home will absolutely plummet. And one thing, if anyone is into the financial market at all, then you know that there are healthy pullbacks and then there are crashes. So, if you're looking at the financial markets, if you look at the US stock market, it's not just a linear, just up, 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 up. There are pullbacks, right? And of course, in the long run, it's climbed up like crazy, but you have pullbacks, and that's very healthy. It's very healthy to have these pullbacks. And that might be what we're seeing right now. So, I think that people probably were a little spoiled then. And now we are seeing it kind of come back down. We're getting one of those healthy pullbacks. But I wanted to ask you, do you have clients that do have concerns about the market crashing? What if I buy this house and the next year it's gonna be worth $5? I can't even sell it for a Big Mac. Like what? Do you get those kinds of questions, and how do you approach that? I mean, do you have any opinions on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's always going to be a thought, especially once an occurrence happens, especially such a very large occurrence that impacts essentially the entire nation. Um, those thoughts will always be there. Um, in my opinion, I think that and, people get misinformation from many different sources, and I'm really just relying on the economists. I'm relying on the data that's being pulled from these professionals to tell us and predict, hey, this is what's happening in our economy, and I think that's really crucial to understand that. Now, if and really, I sorry. It's just I just always think in my head the many people that have come to me. They're like, "Oh, the market's going to crash. The market's going to crash." Like I'm just waiting for the market to crash, and I'm just like, "Man, you're going to be waiting a long time." Because
Yeah.
I mean, I don't personally see anywhere where there's a solid, there's solid evidence that says like, "Hey, we're definitely running into a crash." You know what I mean? Like, unless you could tell me different.
I think that people that want to call the top, and I talked about this last week in the mortgage update, probably you should just buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
This is like, I don't know if you've seen the movie The Big Short.
Oh gosh, yeah, man.
Great movie. I love it. Christian Bale played a gentleman named Michael Burry. Michael Burry was famous for calling the 2008 financial crisis, and he bet against the big banks and had this huge payoff. I think I saw, maybe this is wrong, but it gets the point across. I think in 2023, there was a tweet, there was some kind of post. He just said sell. 2023, the stock market did so incredibly well. And in 2024, it gave back 24%. Michael Burry, I'm assuming he's a smart guy, so I think Joe Schmo from down the street saying, nah, it's definitely going to crash, it's just so hard to call these tops and bottoms. So we see things that could look like they are recessionary. But then again, I think we've learned from our mistakes. I think that 2008, a lot of that was predatory lending. A
Oh
lot of
gosh,
that was
yeah,
who you want a loan, you want to, it was Oprah in
exactly,
here.
man. You
Everyone
want
wants a
600?
loan.
Man, you want $650,000? Sure, here you go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and people were
And then Trid got
defaulting.
created, and then they created
Yeah.
Trid. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
so that's just not how it works anymore. And of course, we could go into recession where it could be difficult for people. I will say though, um, unemployment really has not been an issue. Maybe these numbers might come out different. There have, of course, been things going on in the federal government where there have been layoffs in the federal government, but that's confined, of course, to a sector. But when we look
right.
nationwide, I mean, the data suggests that unemployment numbers are not going up, jobless claims are not going up either. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. I mean, I could look real quick. If they have gone up, it's barely. Um, and inflation, it has ticked up. There are certain things that are inflationary. Inflation is not always a bad thing, and it's one of these cyclical things where,
Hmm.
if inflation does get bad, what the Fed does is they will do a rate hike. Now, that's not a mortgage interest rate hike. It does indirectly impact mortgage rates, but it is a rate hike on the federal funds rate, I want to say. And that is essentially how much people can borrow from banks, right? If you have a high yield savings account, like they might say, oh, we'll give you 4.5% back. If they do a rate hike, you might get 5% back. If they do a rate cut, you might get 4% back. So this is really looking at lending for investors. Of course, that's going to impact indirectly mortgage interest rates because it impacts how investors are allocating funds, whether to the
Hmm.
stock market or the bond market. But that's all just to say a lot of jargon to say that it just doesn't look like there's really going to be a recession. Of course, these things can happen. They're called black swan events, things like COVID. And it's because they are rare and we don't see them coming really. And I think the people that are calling for a market crash, just do it every year because then at least you'll be right one of those years.
Right, exactly. It's just like at some point maybe you'll hit it right on the head, but
Yeah.
you know those years that you were waiting for it, you could have had an appreciating asset in your hands, and you missed out on it. You know,
Yeah.
time is one of those things that you spend and can never get back. I can give you
Yeah.
5 minutes, you can never give me 5 minutes back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's that. When they say time is money, in a sense, that does kind of make sense. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah,
Especially in this type of industry.
of course, of course. I think one thing that people can do if they are concerned is, if you want to buy a house, of course, I don't think that you should just wait for the market to crash. I think that you could be waiting for a while. I don't think it's a terrible idea to have cash sitting around. If you wanted to do that, in some kind of like high yield savings account, not a terrible idea, but I mean that's just having an emergency fund.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it would really be hard to try to call the top and also call the bottom. That's you
Right.
have to be right twice in these events. When there's a market crash, you have to be able to know when it's going to crash and then when it's going to come back up because you
Yep.
want to buy at the bottom. So those timing things are just really rough. Another data point, if you are a little squeamish about buying a house because you're worried about the economy, home prices tend to appreciate. If you look at the median home price over the years, it has gone up and up and up and up. That's
Hmm.
not to say that there aren't
Hmm.
pullbacks, like we talked about. These things have healthy pullbacks, and I think that we are seeing one, like you said. Things are probably getting a little bit more normal. We were in a weird phase of the housing market.
Correct.
So yeah, the whole market crashing thing. Probably probably best just to not try to call those things.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
yeah, man. Cool. All right. So this is It feels like it's been 10 minutes, but it's been almost 45. So
How do you know that? Oh,
yeah, there's a little timer, man.
look,
Yeah, Alan, dude, thanks so much for talking. I feel like this has been
yeah,
such an enlightening conversation for those that are going to watch it, but for me too. You know, you have access to tools that I don't. I could
and vice
guess.
versa,
Yeah, yeah.
vice versa.
I could guess on I really think that the inventory that's sitting is a really interesting figure, and you know, those are things that's why you want to get a realtor. You want to get someone that's experienced. You don't want to just say, "Oh, I can sell my house." You know, sure, you can do that, but you're gonna lose out on someone that has the expertise, the tools too. You just don't have access to these tools, right?
Exactly, and I think that and that's the purpose of why we're in this field. We're meant to be a resource for those out there. A source of education, a source of um, you know. Uh, just being able to make sure that you can pull all of this together.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, just like you said, we have tools as a realtor. You have tools as a lender.
yeah.
Use us. Use
Yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah, of course. Now before we hop off, I do just want to ask,
Yeah, of
you
course.
can do both or you can just choose one. And the other party will just have to suffer without your experience and your knowledge. But do you have something that you're just like, okay, this is just such a crucial thing that I would just love for home buyers or home sellers to know, or this is such a great little piece of advice I would have loved to get um, back when I was starting in 2016 as a fresh realtor, right? Is there something that you want to give to those new realtors or to those home buyer, both parties, is there anything that you would communicate to those people to really help them in this area or help them get in or out of their home?
Honestly, I will give you one golden nugget for new realtors or even realtors who are just like, you know, that have been in for a couple years and they just want more enlightenment. Um, I'll give you one for buyers and I'll give you one for sellers. So I'll start off with realtors first. One thing that has been told to me throughout since I've started, and I've been it's almost been 9 years. Um, your net worth is your net worth.
Hmm.
Be the resource for your clients. You want to be the one-stop shop. You know what I mean? Be so. With that being said, you want to be able to assemble your team. And when I say team, I mean you know us realtors. We work with so many different parties, lenders, title companies, inspectors, contractors. You name it. Be that resource. Network. Meet people. The more resources you have in your back pocket, the more valuable you become, and the more of an expert you become because you will start learning different things from these different people. Of course, they're still the professional, so you're not you probably aren't going to be the one to provide the sole information about X, Y, and Z, but at least you can bring the client to the resource that they need to get the stuff done. That was a one golden nugget. When someone told me that, I was like, it just light bulb just flickered in my
Yeah.
head. I was like, boom,
Hmm.
makes sense, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, for buyers, I just like to say, hey, know your limits. Don't be house poor. Whenever you're starting your home search, the first and most important thing is to, of course, work with a realtor like myself, and then a lender such as Nick, and come together and really game plan what do you want from this process. Obviously, numbers play a really big role. So, from a lending perspective, I usually like to collaborate with the lenders and say, hey, you know, obviously you're gonna assess their financial profile, see what their buying power is. But even besides the buying power, we can give them whatever number they want to see at the bottom line is, well, what are they paying every month? You know, and this is specifically meant for those who are looking to purchase homes as a primary resident. I'm not talking about, like investor type of
Mhm.
situations at this time. This is just meant for purely like a primary home buying
Okay.
customer for a client. Mhm.
Yeah.
And then for sellers, um, promise you we're doing our best. I promise. The market is just very, very different nowadays. But again, let the realtor set the expectation for you. Ask them as many questions as you can. Because again, at the end of the day, you're selling your home and you're using their services. So they should be able to provide you with data, analysis, all of these different things that will help you understand the process and help you make a sound decision in selling your home and how to move forward. So, uh, if I were to give those are my three golden nuggets for
Mm.
each: a realtor, a buyer, and a seller.
Yeah. 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 I think the networking thing is such a big thing. That goes for everything, right? You want to be able to
Yeah.
network with people, you want to be able to connect with people, and that's such a great part of both of our jobs. You get to meet all these people that you normally wouldn't have, and I'm sure you've made
Yeah. Just,
really solid connections. Just
yeah.
business wise, but also just personal, like on a personal level. Friendship
Oh,
wise,
good.
right?
Yeah. I mean, I've met so many people that, man, I've been doing business with them from the start. We've eventually become friends,
Hmm.
things like that. Whether it's uh, you know, a vendor that I work with, or even clients, like which way, anywhere, like all of these bonds just start to develop through
Yeah.
the process, and it's really nice. It's really nice to know that, hey, like we have a working relationship, but at the same time we can, go kick it and go to happy hour really quickly and just like, just chat, chill.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure.
So,
Right on, Alan. Well, thanks so much, man. What a nice conversation. This is the first time that
sure,
I'm
man.
doing this. And I don't know how often you do this, man, but you seem like a professional. So
This is, I've honestly never done anything like this. I will not
yeah,
lie.
no,
I've
it was
never done
great,
this.
man. It was great.
I mean, Shamie puts me in front of the camera, but I've never done
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, anything that you want to leave off on, and any listings that you want to kind of put out there for the people? Anything that you got, or we calling it a night?
Well, I mean, we definitely have we have a ton of listings coming up in these next couple months, because we have a lot of folks who are either, I think a lot of them are relocating. So
Mm,
we probably have 6 or 7 listings that come up at the moment. They're just not listed at this time. And the listings that we do have are already under contract. So I don't have too much to give to the people at the moment, but definitely follow our Instagram page. It's at Alan and Shamie. Um, you can connect with us there if you're trying to find a realtor. If you just have any questions about real estate in general, please feel free to hit us up. We'll be happy to help you out, answer any of the questions that come to mind. Again, we want to be that resource for you guys. So, what better place to start than right here?
right on. Right on.